Welcome to When We're Not Hustling, a podcast where sex workers talk about everything but. I'm your host, Jessie Sage.
Put away the lingerie. I want to know you. Tell me more. I don't care about the news. I'd rather hear about you and see the world from your point of view. The coffee's already made, so I park the sheets, just pull up a chair and tell me more.
When We're Not Hustling is a weekly podcast that explores the lives and identities of sex workers outside of our work personas, our personal philosophies, ambitions, families, relationships, passions, spirituality, and so much more. We talk about our lives beyond the job, asking, what does the flexibility of sex work allow us to do, and who does it allow us to be? On this show, we learn who sex workers are outside of the work we're known for. When We're Not Hustling is an exploration of the people behind the fantasies. When We're Not Hustling is brought to you by Assembly 4. Assembly 4 is a collective of sex workers and technologists working to bring the overall cost of sex work down through their advertising platform, Tryst.link. They also educate clients through the Good Client Guide and provide resources and articles written by and for sex workers. Assembly 4 caters to all genders and demographics and raises funds to fight for sex worker rights and against exploitation in the sex industry. Learn more at assembly4.com. ASSEMBLYFOUR.com. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of When We're Not Hustling. This is Jessie Sage. I am very excited because today we have on a special guest, Emery Fields, and he's special because he's the only first of all, he's special because he's the first cis man that's been on our show and who works as an escort. And also he's special because he's the only sex worker I've ever hired for myself. And that was a really good experience. I wrote about it in my City Paper column twice, actually. I'll put this in the show notes, but I wrote a piece on deciding to hire somebody. And then I wrote a little reflection on what that experience was like and published it in the paper. So I will link to both of those in the show notes. But beyond the fact that he has that personal connection to me, he is a lovely and charming person who is a trained dancer. And in this episode, he talks a lot about that experience of being a trained dancer, of the work that he's done as a choreographer, as a director, as a dance teacher, as a performer. And I think that you will find that very interesting, even if you have, especially if you are if you have never been involved in like the performance world, which I haven't. So it was super interesting to me. So I hope that you enjoy that. I will also give a couple of announcements like I tend to do in the intro. The first thing I want to say is that I want to remind people how the show works and how to listen to it, because I don't know if we've been super explicit about it. So every Monday we put out a new episode with a new guest. This week is Emery. On Wednesday on both YouTube, if you want to watch the video, and then also on wherever you get your podcast, we have what we call an after party where Emily and I are talking about the episode with a special guest. For July, the special guest is my mom. And so that you don't necessarily have to listen to it, but we thought it would be fun to have a more casual discussion about what the guests have taught us, what sort of insights it brings us, because hopefully that sets up a community around listening to sex workers. So I encourage you to listen to the after parties and to listen to them in conjunction with the episode. So we put them out shortly after the episode so that you remember the episode and can engage with it, with what we're talking about. Often we don't talk directly that much about the episode because every guest that we've had brings their own flavor, their own interests, their own stories. And those meet us in some way. And so we like to talk about how what they say impacts us and our thinking. So often it's about us, but that's what I want you to do when you listen to our podcast too. So we're trying to give you sex worker stories about their lives that they live outside of sex work, but we hope that those connect with you and who you are outside of your work too. So that's a quick note on that. The other thing that I wanted to tell you that's new this season is that on Patreon, which is patreon.com/Sapio Textual, we are doing something new with season 2 where we are dropping on Monday the second episode, not the second. We're doing something new on Patreon where on Monday when we drop the episode, we are also dropping next week's episode early for the Patreon people who spend $5 a month or more. So if you want to listen after listening to this episode, if you're very curious about who we're talking to and what we're doing next week, I suggest that you go to the Patreon, become a $5 a month subscriber, and then you'll be able to hear the after party next week's episode and after party a week early. So please go and do that. Support us. Any support will help, and we appreciate you showing us some love. Even if you don't want to listen to us a week early and you just want to listen to us in real time, $5 a month isn't a lot. And we put a ton of effort into this show. So please go to patreon.com/Sapio Textual. Beyond that, I don't know that I have any important announcements. My new office is getting up and running. I am going to be in Brooklyn in September. So if you're interested in seeing me, reach out. I would love to hear from you. And other than that, you can go listen. Other than that, I'm in Pittsburgh. People should know that by now. I'm in Pittsburgh. So you could see me in Pittsburgh between those trips. I am at Sapio Textual on Twitter and on Instagram at curvaceous_sage. So you can check those out. If you want to follow our socials for the show, please go do that at Not Hustling Pod on Instagram and Twitter. And you can also follow us at When We're Not Hustling on Facebook. So please follow us, reach out. We love to hear your takes on the show. And if you're a sex worker who wants to come on the show and talk about your life, we would love that too. You can email me at nothustlingpod@proton.me. Anyways, that is enough of my babbling. I would like to go right into the interview with Emery. Hi, Emery. It's really good to see you.
Great to see you too. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show. I saw you in New York was that like a month ago? It was like a month ago.
Yeah, just about.
Yeah. And it was very, very fun to meet you. So I'm glad you're on the show now. Can you tell the audience a little bit about you and your background?
Sure. My name is Emery Fields. I am a few things. I am a full service provider as well as a professional dancer. My dance work includes teaching, performing, directing, and kind of takes me all over the world.
That's so amazing.
Yeah. I love them. I love both facets of work. I wouldn't be happy with just one. And I found that they fit really well together over the past few years.
Yeah, I imagine, because you have to travel for your gigs and then you can just work wherever you are.
Exactly. It's a few points of it make it really fit well together. Number one is just the traveling part of it. Usually I'd say 8 or 9 times out of 10, if you see that I'm touring somewhere, it really just means that I have a booking somewhere and I'm traveling for dance. And then I thought, hey, why don't I try and make some money while I'm there too? I
do that too.
That part works
I'm
out.
like, I'm going for this thing, but makes it look, like I'm out and about, but I am. And I think that that's the best thing about this work is that often, if you're doing a dance gig, you're obviously getting paid for that. But often I do because I'm a writer, so I'll give talks and do conferences and things like that. And those don't pay enough to cover the costs, but I can cover my own costs. So that's great.
Oh, exactly. Dancing is very similar in
Yeah.
that, yes, we get paid for it, but compared to my Emory work, it is a tiny little drop in the bucket, you know.
I was going to ask kind of
Yeah.
rhetorically, which one makes more money?
Obviously, I got into dance for the money, you know, the money and the fame. It's wild. I remember when I first started this work, I did this directing gig that I loved. It was a show that I was really passionate about, and I worked on it for over a month just for that iteration of it. And I was putting in anywhere from 10 to 14-hour days
Yeah.
every day. And then immediately after I wrapped that gig, I had one overnight session in which I made more than I did pouring my heart and soul out the entire month before. And it was wild. It was just this crazy experience of what is money? It's all made up. Nothing makes sense. Yep.
I think we were talking about that when we were sitting at the bar. Like, it does feel like that when you do this kind of work, especially since it's a lot of cash. Like, there's something that feels very different about getting paid in cash and then buying things in cash, because it's like, it seems like it would be more tangible, but like, to me, it feels like these pieces of paper turn into groceries. It's weird. I showed up and somebody handed this to me, and I'm going to hand it to somebody else, and then I can have it's very abstract, actually, and very weird.
Oh, I agree. In the dance and the entertainment industry, especially when it comes to teaching, we're not unused to, oh, there's a double negative. We're very used to being paid in cash, just not in the amounts in this industry. So if I'm teaching a private lesson, usually I'll be getting, you know, a couple of $100 in cash or something, and then that makes sense. But all of a sudden, with these envelopes, just with thousands of dollars, that is a very foreign experience. And exactly what you're saying, where it's almost unwieldy, and you don't know what to do with it, and you feel nervous, like walking around with it in your bag or leaving it in your apartment. It's I mean, good problems to have, but things that need figuring out. But it's in the way that it feels similar to my dance work. Being paid in cash and kind of being paid under the table, although I guess in a more extreme sense now, it helped kind of bridge these worlds in that Emory work never felt all that different than dance work. They still feel like service industry jobs. They still feel like jobs in which it's gig based. I'm being paid cash a lot. It's flexible, unpredictable hours. They really, at the end,
use your body in both too.
You use your body in both. Exactly. Yes. They have very similar physical demands, as well as mental and emotional. Honestly, there's a lot more similarity than there are differences, especially when it comes to teaching and performing. It really, more and more, they feel extremely similar, if not the same. You're just serving or entertaining people in different ways.
Yeah. I feel that. I mean, I'm not a dancer, but like, I can relate to that, because I feel like getting into, this is going to sound like an odd example, but like, the first thing I did in sex work was I was a film, not the first thing. I take that back. I was a cam girl, very unsuccessful cam girl. But I don't want to talk to a chat room full of people who have like, it didn't fit me. But so that was the very first thing I did. But the first thing I did that I was actually successful at was I was a phone sex operator. And I remember before I got into full service and in-person work, and I remember the first thing that I thought was, before that, I had a job that I quit where I was working at an office, and I was like at the front, and every person who came in, like, including all of my coworkers, would just stand at my desk. And like, as the woman, I'm going to give kind of a gendered analysis of this, but like, as the woman in the office, everybody would stand there and just like tell me all of their stuff. And I felt like my main job was just to like entertain these men who were like walking in and out of the office. Like, and then I was like, wait, this is the same job. It's just the same job. I'm just making people's day go by faster and like entertaining them in some way, except now they're paying me by the minute. So I'm much less irritated with them.
That is nail on the head, 100%. If I could tell you how many, I used to teach a lot of wedding couples. I would teach their first dances. I would choreograph them and teach it to them. And if I could explain how much of those lessons were actually just therapy sessions with a very unqualified therapist who knew how to do the Roomba, it makes no sense. And how they really are the same, and that people just want to talk about their lives and want to connect with someone more than anything else. If the purpose of meeting with that person was to learn how to do a waltz or a foxtrot, or to have a sexual release in between all of those moments, they just want to talk about their day and chat with somebody and feel connected. So similar.
I also found, I thought you were going to say something else. And what I thought you were going to say is that it's just like being in a session with a couple. I don't know if you've done much of that, but that is like a therapy session.
Yep. I hear that a lot. Yes, wedding couple lessons and meeting couples as Emery, those definitely have a lot of correlations, a lot of similarities. I'll say wedding lessons are even more maybe contentious isn't the right word, but they're fraught with conflict in that couples are really forced to work together and tackle a problem in a new way that they're not used to, as well as there's very often this kind of imbalance where one person is just a naturally more gifted dancer for whatever reason. Not that either of them need to be exceptional, but there's usually one person who takes to it faster. And then this couple has to deal with that dynamic as well, which is sometimes a little tricky to navigate as the couple and me as the instructor. So thankfully we don't have that dynamic in the in couple sessions. So I was definitely well prepared for when I met my first couple as Emery. And it almost felt like a very similar experience, but then with even less problems or with different problems.
Right. Well, you don't have to have like a final product, which is like the dance that they can both do. Like, but you do, like, I've found that I like go in a little bit more. Like, it's always easier to work with one person than it is with like two people, but I think that like I've gone in and been like, okay, I got to make sure both people are comfortable. No one leaves feeling bad, or like one person got more attention than another person, or that one person felt like they were supposed to do, like, especially because with those dynamics, it's often like one person really wanting something and the other one being like, okay, I will give this to you. Yeah,
absolutely. And we definitely have that in dance where there's one person who has a vision for their first dance that they've been dreaming about since they were a child. And then one person is doing this because they love the other person. Yeah. That's fine. That's valid.
I never thought about this. I didn't so I've been married twice. I did not do this like dance thing. I didn't have formal weddings, but like, thankfully, because that would have completely stressed me out. But, but it's funny because I remember when I was in my first, marriage, we were young, and I don't play music anymore, but I was a band nerd growing up. I took piano lessons. I like did music a lot. And when I was in college, I wanted to learn how to play the guitar. My producer, Emily, is going to be like, you never told me you played the guitar. It's because I don't anymore. She's a guitar player.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah. But so I took Spanish guitar lessons, and my ex-husband like bought me a guitar, and then we bought a book, and they were like, he was like, I want to learn with you. Like, since you're learning from the ground up, like, let's do it together. It'll be a fun bonding activity. I'm pretty good at picking up instruments and music. Again, not anymore because I'm many decades away from it. But like at the time I was. he lasted like a week and a half and was like, I finished the beginner book and he's like on page 1 and can't like figure out. He's like, no, this is like, this dynamic is too uneven. I can't do it. And he just like exited out of it, which I understand, because if you're trying to do something with somebody and they pick it up a million times faster, it's just frustrating.
Yeah. That's tough to navigate. Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your dance background. Like, what kind of dance do you do?
So I grew up doing ballet and jazz and lyrical and modern and tap and all those good things. But I did that up until I was in my senior year of high school. And up to that point, I thought that I was going to join a ballet company. And I wasn't going to go to college. I was just going to dance professionally. And then my senior year of high school, I took a anatomy class and I absolutely fell in love with it.
Oh, really?
I was completely obsessed. They had this bone box that you could rent out every day. And I was renting it out every single day and going through and learning the little parts of bones and stuff.
Wow.
And, I was completely obsessed with this class. And my teacher, she told me that I should think about becoming a doctor. And I wanted to combine them both. I thought about becoming a physical therapist or a sports medicine doctor or something. And she said, no, you'll get bored. Just go become a doctor. Don't become a physical therapist. I said, okay. So I decided I wasn't going to be a starving artist. I was going to become a doctor. I go to college and I still wanted to dance. So I signed up for a bunch of extracurriculars. I signed up for the swing dance club, the Latin and ballroom dance club, a kind of amateur ballet performance company. And so I still had a bunch of dance going on while I was studying. But then fast forward a couple of years, I suddenly realized I was dancing way more than I was studying. I was president of the swing dance club and the Latin ballroom dance club. I quickly realized that I really could care less about organic chemistry or any of the classes that I was taking. And so I changed my major to, I have a degree in nutrition as a fallback, just for fun.
Yeah.
But I
you're a vegan, right?
I was just going to dance. Yes, I am vegan. And that was a large part of leading towards that. But I decided that I was going to just dance after I graduated. And that's what I did. And I have never used my degree other than, deciding what to eat for every meal.
Yeah. Well, that's useful.
That is useful. But as soon as I found partner dancing, I knew that that's what I really love. And that's what I've made a career out of doing, teaching and performing and choreographing.
That's so fun. Yeah. So what is it like to be a professional dancer?
It is simultaneously the most magical and stressful experience that you can imagine. It's magical in that I get to do what I love every day. And then it's stressful in that there is no reliable paycheck and you have to do what you love every day. By that, I mean that it can be exhausting. And when you're doing anything for 7 days a week, you need that change of pace, but you don't really have the option of saying no a lot of times when you're in that freelance work, especially when you're, I remember when I was getting started in my career, it was, you just had to keep going, keep pounding the pavement, keep reminding people that you exist, and trying to build up either a client base or relationships with producers, directors, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So it got better and better as I went. I'd say after 5 to 10 years of doing that work, I had a more established presence and I was doing more exciting and higher paying work that I was able to start saying no to things. But it really wasn't until the pandemic that things really changed. So the pandemic comes and all of the entertainment industry completely shuts down. There's nothing left. No one's doing anything, of course, for good reason. And
it's interesting because you and I have like kind of a joint like experience in that, because I am a writer. I'm a columnist at Alt Weekly, and Alt Weeklies are run on entertainment revenue because people are advertising their shows and their venues, and like all of our money to run an Alt Weekly comes from basically the entertainment industry, like including restaurants and like bars and things like that. But I was furloughed because they're like, we don't have any money. Like there's nothing going on. I was like, people were still having sex. You should keep a sex columnist. But they're like, yeah, but how are we going to pay you?
Oh man.
Yeah. So it's interesting that like when the ripple effects of like the entertainment industry shutting down are like actually really big beyond that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was especially rough because it was one of the first things to shut down, because like it's very hard to argue that you are a essential worker when you're in the entertainment industry. And it was also one of the last things to come back. So it was just the period that there was little to no work was huge. So we got creative trying to do a bunch of virtual work. I did a bunch of virtual stage managing. I taught myself how to video edit. I did a bunch of website design, which would definitely come in handy later.
Did you design your Emory website?
I did.
It's so good. I didn't assume that you did that because it looks very, not that I don't think you're professional, but I did not design my website. I outsourced that shit. So I just assume other people did too, but it's very good. I like it a lot.
Thank you. It's a very high compliment. No, both of those things, the video editing and the website design, both really came in handy once I created Emory. But it was... it came from a period of time when Zoomsicles were a big thing, where musicals. Zoomsicle? Oh my gosh. I'm so glad that you don't know, because they were, I'm so glad that they existed because they allowed me to make money. And I'm so glad that they don't exist anymore because they're really a poor replacement for live theater. So Zoomsicles happened when musicals were shut down because of COVID. I was working on a show actually, and it was shut down a week before opening. So a bunch of musicals were in this same situation where they had put in all this work, all this rehearsal just to be shut down right before they were supposed to go, or right in the middle of a run. So what they did is they kind of took all of this work and directed it towards a virtual setting. So for example, they would pick a song and each cast member would record their portion of the song, record video and audio, and then send it in. And then I, as a video editor, would take all of their little floating faces and arrange them on screen in creative ways. And then the sound designer would edit the song into something that sounds amazing. And so it made this kind of funny, unique thing that we came to call a Zoomsicle. Which was either just one song or an entire performance.
Oh my gosh.
So I ended up video editing both, many versions of both, and also just some straight plays, no singing, where those were funny because every director really wanted to use green screens. And green screens are already really tricky in a controlled environment, but they become almost impossible to use effectively when it's in the actor's apartment. Using a green screen and lighting supplied by the actor, that you have to guide them how to set it up and light themselves over Zoom. You can't just go and say, hey, let me adjust this light. Let me tweak this here. You have to guide them. Hey, can you move every lamp that you own into this room? Can you try and, tip this lamp sideways and put a sheet over it and let's see how that goes. Oh my gosh. It was a beautiful moment of everybody coming together and everyone getting so creative as to how to solve these problems, but also the biggest headache that I've ever gone through to try and make something that resembles theater, as well as my job as a stage manager or associate director or anything was mostly, I'd say 90% just tech support, just teaching people how to use Zoom. I created so many little videos of myself explaining to people how to mute, unmute, and share your screen and set up sound settings so that it sounded okay. Oh my gosh. What a time to be alive.
Yeah.
So during COVID, not to get too far, I know the
You're
original
not making
question.
me miss any of this.
No,
This is why I got out of online sex work and became an escort.
Exactly.
This is terrible. But I'm not a techie person, so I'm like, oh man, yeah. But keep going.
Okay. So in the midst of this, like jobs and money were even more unpredictable, and everything, of course, paid even less because entertainment industry was completely shut down. So it was during that time that I started to look into other options. And I had a friend who did full service sex work, and they were telling me about their work and just the industry as a whole, giving me idea of it. And I decided that it was something I wanted to try. So I did a bunch of research on my own. I started to create my website, created my Twitter. First time I ever had a Twitter. It was very exciting. And so then as the pandemic eased off, I started to put more energy and effort into that. That by the time we came back, I was definitely putting equal effort into Emery and into my dance work. But the entertainment industry took significantly longer to come back in the same way that it was pre-COVID. Some would even argue that it still hasn't.
Well, I would think that I did the same thing where I worked very hard on my branding. And then as soon as I got my first vaccine and people started to get those, I was like, okay, I'm back, and seems like, you saying that the entertainment industry took longer makes sense because people were all if you're going to step into the escort, see right as people are entering back in, there are so many people who were so touch starved and so ready for human contact that it was the perfect time to come back.
Oh, looking back on it, I completely recognize that. And I didn't know what a perfect time it was.
Yeah.
It was also nice because it was one-on-one. I could control my exposure, control my risk level.
Yeah.
I could still be safe. And it was also, it was during this moment in time where Broadway theaters specifically were trying to open back up. And we saw this period of time where show after show would open up their theater, then get a bunch of COVID cases and close back down. And it was just it became this repeating tale. And it was really kind of disheartening to see and more of a driving force to put more effort into Emery. To continue to create this.
Yeah. So you are the first. I think this is true. Emily might tell me if I'm wrong about this, but I think you're the first cis man. No. Yeah, you are. You're the first cis man that's been on the show. We have had a trans man and my partner has come on, but they're non-binary. So you're the first person that identifies like that. And I'm so, so this isn't supposed to be a show about sex work, but I am so curious as a cis man, what the market is for you. And I know you're in New York and Philly that are more progressive and where there's more business than a lot of other places, but who hires men?
So it's very different than I expected it was going to be. I assumed that it was going to be mostly single men hiring me.
That's what I would assume too, that it's bi-curious men or closeted gay men or just gay men, all of those. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you for listening to When We're Not Hustling. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen to your podcasts. Doing so will help other people find us. And if you're a sex worker who wants to come on the show and talk about your life outside of work, we would love to have you. Please send an email with more information to nothustlingpod@proton.me.
But what has actually happened is that most of my work comes from men hiring me with another person, either with another provider they see who is usually female, or as a couple. So I'll either see couples or a man with their favorite provider. And those, I would say, are most of my bookings. The men with their favorite provider are usually men who are trying to explore a little bit, who have a little bit of curiosity, but who still want like some familiarity, which is either a friendly, familiar face in the room, or they still want a woman there so that, you know, they have a more familiar, comfortable experience, or for whatever reason.
It's so interesting that you say that, because one of the things that I came to understand when I worked in this industry was how much more fluid men's sexuality is than like we're led to believe in this like very like heteronormative culture, but also how are you frozen? I can't tell.
Oh no, okay, just very still.
Yeah. But also how much like more comfortable men are having women like kind of mediate those experiences. And so I'm not surprised to hear you say that, because my like experience with a lot of clients has been like, I'm very curious to have these experiences, but they very much want me to help them like mediate that or be there in some way, even if it's just through fantasy talking, fantasizing about those experiences, but sometimes they want to take them out of fantasy and bring them into reality too.
I have gotten so many emails that have started with, so-and-so has helped me discover this side of myself, or something along those lines, where either they feel that they're a provider that they've seen has helped them get in touch with a more feminine side of themselves, or get in touch with or accept this curiosity that they have, or just their bi-curiousness, and something that they would not have explored or felt safe talking about or acting on if they hadn't seen this person.
And
it's
that's also really interesting.
I think it's really beautiful to see, and something that has definitely made me appreciate all of the beautiful things that sex work can do, where it's not just, gratification for gratification's sake, although that's wonderful and that's beautiful. But it's also this exploratory, healing journey. I really think it's a powerful experience that can be really positive change. I had another thought and then I lost it. I was going to say that it's sometimes really difficult to tell how people are going to respond in this first session as well. And whether it's going to be, and also this work has taught me the difference between a MMF versus MFM. I don't know if you
I do know
that a lot. But if it's going to be, everybody is interacting, where they want to, kiss and be intimate with me, or if they want to focus on the pleasure of the woman in the room. And I feel in the beginning, I used to, through the emails and the interactions, used to have kind of really well established ideas of what it was going to be like. And after my first handful of them, I've completely thrown those ideas out because I was wrong pretty much every time. Oh my gosh. If I got the feeling that this was just like a mostly straight person who wanted a little bit of exploration, but, really wanted that MFM experience, then we walked into the room and they just immediately started making out with me. And it was just like,
and then you're like, okay, never mind. The whole
time. I was like, well, okay, cool. Very pleasantly surprised and pleasantly glad to be wrong. So it really is to what you were saying. People are a lot more fluid than we think. And I think if we give that safe environment and just a non-judgmental space for people to explore within, we're always going to be surprised, I think.
I love that. And I think that one of the beauty of sex work, I think, is there a lot of people outside of the industry, I think, imagine it as this like seedy underworld that people don't talk about. And there's an extent to which I mean, it's not very seedy. It's actually like pretty, like you get used to it and you're like, this is not seedy in any way, but like it's just people trying to connect. And, it felt to me very much like my office job, except that my clothes are off, like it's, but I do think that there's something really interesting about the fact that it's like not talked about and underground also helps it to be this beautiful experience that people ask for what they want, and experience things that they don't feel comfortable like claiming necessarily. And be it like a bisexual experience or an experience with somebody with a body that's different than what they think that they're supposed to like, or sexual acts that they feel like they don't feel comfortable asking their partner for. And, there used to be, when I first started, I remember talking to a lot of my clients about like, they would say things like, I really want to do this, but I don't want to do it with my partner. I don't want to ask them or something. And I would, my first thought was like, oh, that's sad. Why don't you share that with them? And I've stopped thinking that because I've started thinking like, there are contexts to our relationships, and maybe you don't want like a certain dynamic to be a part of that context, but that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with that relationship, that maybe you just want to be able to experience this with somebody who's not a part of your regular everyday life. And there's something so freeing about that like, I love giving people those experiences.
I absolutely agree. I'm also, in my personal life, I'm polyamorous, and both of these journeys kind of started on similar timelines. I started exploring polyamory only a couple of years before I entered into sex work. And it definitely helped with this exact idea that you're talking about, where now I really believe that not everyone has to be everything to everyone, in that I don't have to share. Absolutely. I don't have to experience every sexual act with one person, or if I want to experience one thing with somebody else, that doesn't mean that I value this other person less.
Right.
It's such what would have been such a mind-blowing concept to me even a decade ago, really just feels so natural, and it feels like such a valuable and vital outlook for this work that we do.
I think that that's an important parallel, I think, because like there's a way that it frees you to be able to explore things with other people, but there's also a way in which like that sort of opening or understanding that you don't have to be all things to everybody also frees you to say no to things that you don't want to do, where there's like, I don't know, like I was thinking as you were talking, because in my relationship, we're also poly. I say I'm not monogamous, but my partner is definitely poly. And by that, I mean, I don't have the bandwidth to date anyone. Every time somebody's like, do you have boyfriends? I'm like, I have 100 boyfriends. They're called clients. But anyways, but yes, I mean, I think by most people's standards, we would like be considered poly. And I was talking to my partner the other day, just joking around, and they said something about like a strip club. And I don't like strip clubs. I'm a very like introverted person. As a woman, if you walk into a strip club, the strippers often pay a lot of attention to you because they think it's going to get tips from like the dudes who were there. And I'm like, I don't want to be a part of the show. Like, please don't motorwork me. Like, please ignore me. Like, I don't want to be here. But I think that like, but there was something but if you're in a monogamous relationship, it's hard to say no to things, because then you're like, well, then my partner is going to like not have an experience that they want to have. But it's very easy to be like, yeah, I'm not going, take your girlfriend.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
You go have whatever experience you want. Like, it's not for me. There's something nice about that. Yeah. Like, about this realization that like not one person has to be everything to you, but also you don't have to be everything to another person either.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. And not to turn this into a polyamory podcast, but
I mean, we can have a polyamory one.
Oh, perfect. We
can talk about whatever we want.
now I feel like when I first started exploring polyamory, and all I ever wanted to talk about was polyamory to everybody. I was like, "Have you guys heard about this? It's incredible." Where I really think it's these values and skills and this outlook that's so valuable even outside this specific relationship model of polyamory.
Yeah.
Even if you are monogamous, it's still so healthy and important to recognize that your partner doesn't have to be everything to you, that you can still fulfill a bunch of your needs from friends and family and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. From other types of other relationships that don't all necessarily have to like fit a mold. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good point, and it's really important. How do those things like fit together for you? Because I actually find it, and I'm like, maybe I'm a little broken. I don't know. I find it hard to desire to be polyamorous, but maybe that's because I have a primary partner right now too. But like doing this work, because it often feels like dating often feels just like working, except that to me, and I don't, and which isn't just because I actually really like my work, but I'm like, it's very difficult for me to manage all that stuff at the same time.
Yeah, I hear that completely. It's tricky, and honestly, it's trickier than I thought it was going to be in the beginning. Where I thought it was going to be really easy to just come in, do my work, and then have my personal life be my personal life. But I find that there needs to be a little bit more purposeful and intentional separation. And I've found some. I don't think that my system is perfect yet. We're discovering it every day. But I found these little ways to try and help myself kind of separate what's work and what's for me. Where it's really silly, basic ways, from the outfits that I wear, or like the jewelry that I choose for my dates, you know, that I kind of almost feel like it's a uniform, not costume's not the right word, because I'm not like changing who I am, but it's like, this is work time. This is Emory time. And then that helps for some reason on some psychological level, that when I take those off, then this is me. I'm living for me, you know? And that this is not complicated by anything else that comes with my work. I feel like I had more I wanted to say, but it's
it's complicated. I think it's complicated when you perform like intimacy, like when that's your job, is you perform intimacy. Sometimes I feel like it's hard to take that and do that. Like, I guess maybe for me, because I mean, maybe this is just an experience of like what poly people call like polysaturation, but I feel like, because I think there's something akin there, but I often feel like, okay, so I have like a way of being in the world, like with my partner, because, you know, we share this life together. And then I have a different way of being with like my clients. And then I'm like, I can't come up with like another way of being. And I also have, you know, children. And so there's like a lot of relational roles that I play that I'm like, I don't think that I think it's actually just a matter of saturation. Like if I'm really to think about it. Yeah.
I think you're onto something with the polysaturation, or I guess maybe we need a new term for it. But I think you're absolutely right, because I know pre-doing sex work, I was just constantly on Field or Tinder, like, you know, like always excited to meet somebody new and see where it would go and whatnot. But since doing sex work, I feel much more content with my established relationships, and don't feel the need to like constantly be going out and meeting new people. I feel like that itch is already scratched.
I feel that way too. And I think that like there's different ways to think about it. You could think about it as like, oh, maybe we stop desiring, like, you could think about it, you could spin it in some sort of negative way. Like this work has negatively impacted like your ability to be like intimate, but that's not actually how I'm thinking about it. I think that like there's another way to think about it, which is like exactly what you said. Like we do get, we may be working, but like we also get, these are also real relationships. There are also people that we're involved with that are engaged in our life that do scratch some sort of like emotional / sexual needs, even if they're in the context of work, that like my desire to go put the energy into like finding that outside of where I'm already getting it is much lower. I'm like, oh, great. Now I can watch a TV show that I want to watch because I already have done all the things.
Yeah. No, I agree. It definitely does it satisfies that human desire to meet someone new and learn their story and like have that first time experience, and we're so lucky to get that a lot. And
we are
also so lucky to have the regulars, the returners as well. And
yeah, that's a very nice mix of like, oh, this is a first kiss. There's something like very exciting about let's see how we like meld together. But then there's also like, oh, and then I also have people I've been seeing for 3 years. And like, I am excited every time I see them because I want to know how their kids are doing and what's going on here. And like, it's both of those things.
Yeah, it's a perfect little microcosm of the kind of relationships that we want for our life in all areas. You want that mixture of exciting first and new, and the mixture of comfortable and familiar.
Yeah. Right.
And I feel so lucky that I get both in both my work sphere and in my personal sphere. And to a point that you were making before, it's it really satisfies. No, let me start that again. It's beautiful that I can like satisfy those human needs in my personal life, but then also in my work life. Like, it's not like I put on this Emery mask and I'm this unfeeling robot. I bring, and I think it's really important. I bring myself to those encounters.
I do too. Yeah.
I allow myself to genuinely enjoy myself, to feel pleasure in my sessions, to enjoy the person that I'm connecting with. And I feel really grateful that I get to work with a bunch of beautiful people, both as colleagues in duos and trios or morsos, and as well from clients who book me to I've met so many wonderful people through this work, and I love it.
Yeah. Well, I met you, so that's so nice.
Yes. You are the prime example. It was so wonderful to
we didn't even mention that like I booked you. Am I like, has that happened before where sex workers book you for themselves?
It has happened before.
Okay.
You were the first one to book me for a massage.
Oh, nice.
You were the first in that sense, which was so delightful.
It was delightful for me too. It was very fun. Yeah.
Clients really are as anyone can imagine, providers are the ultimate client, and that they get, they get what's happening, and they're so forthright with their screening and so courteous in all of their communications, as well as there's just an instant camaraderie. It really, like, colleague is such a good word for it, and that there's this instant recognition, and they're
I thought it was really fun. Like, what we did is we like had drinks before as like colleagues, and we're just like hanging out and talking about our work, and then somehow I think because we both know how to do this, we like went up to the room and like, okay, we're switching into like this other mode, and that's great too. And that was really fun and, easy to do. I think I've done a lot of duos with like other workers, but I've never had a worker book me. So I haven't had that experience, but I would totally welcome that. That would be cool.
Yes. Yeah. I'm manifesting that for you.
Okay. I've hooked up other workers with each other though.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I had a friend who reached out to me. I've had this happen a couple times, like an organizer that I worked with who was like, I really want to have an experience. Do you have anyone that you would recommend that's not in our social circle? And I would be like, oh man, we know the same people. Let me think, because you don't necessarily want like somebody that you know and do a lot of things with, so
Totally.
that was fun to see them connect. Yeah.
Matchmaker.
Yeah. Okay. So we're running up on time.
Okay.
Do you sorry, Emily, you're going to have to edit this out. We're running up on time. I like to end every episode with 3 questions. What are you reading?
What am I reading? I just finished the Kingkiller Chronicle books. The second one is A Wise Man's Fear, and I am completely obsessed. Oh my gosh. It's the first one was Name of the Wind. Second one, A Wise Man's Fear. Mm-hmm. It's 2 books of an eventual trilogy. And it's by Brandon Sanderson. Mm-hmm. And the third one is not out yet. We've been waiting for, I think, about a decade. So we'll see if it happens. But it's amazing. Even if the third one never gets released, I recommend these 2 books to everybody. I could not put them down. Mm-hmm. I seriously, I was that person walking off the subway with my nose in a book and like stairs reading it. It was very dangerous, but phenomenal. I had these books recommended to me for years and years and years. Mm-hmm. And eventually I saw it in a bookstore. I was actually on a date in Boston with a client, and we went to no. I was on a tour in Boston with another provider, Isabella, and we went to a bookstore. She's so
pretty.
Isn't she? Oh, she's amazing.
I've never met her in real life, but like every time I see her on Twitter, I'm like, what?
She's amazing. And we've been talking about like everything fantasy, Baldur's Gate and Lord of the Rings and everything. So I was very much in the fantasy headspace.
Yeah.
And we were doing trios, Isabella, myself, and Jem.
Also beautiful.
Lovely. We're about to go back to Boston Monday for another tour. Very exciting. But I saw this book while I was with her, and I just had to get it. And I am so happy that I did.
Nice.
It's incredible. Right now I am reading How to Do Nothing. And I'm blanking on the author's name, but it's about how to resist the attention economy and resist the urge to constantly be productive. And
it's not Celeste Headley, is it?
Say again?
It's not Celeste Headley, is it?
I don't remember. I wouldn't even, I don't know if I would remember if you said. I just started it. I'm on chapter 1.
Yeah.
I think it's Jenny Odell. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
It's so far, it's a fabulous read. It's getting me into birding, of all things. I really love hiking and backpacking, and she is talking constantly about birding and how much fun it is. And my partner is a photographer, like is a professor, but like on the side is a photographer and loves taking pictures of birds. And last night we were talking, and they were like thinking about getting rid of my digital camera because I like Polaroids, doing Polaroid and film camera so much more. And I was like, that's funny because you've always had one. And then they were like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. But the thing they said is the only thing is I need it for the birds. Need it for the birds. You do. It's so true. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I don't know what's come over me. I'm suddenly listening to birding podcasts. I got a set of binoculars. It's not okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also the most beautiful thing that's ever happened. So yeah, that's what I'm reading at the moment. Okay. And I'm always reading some weird French children's book to try and practice my French. That always looks great on the subway where I'm reading this colorful book for like a 9-year-old. Yeah.
Cute. And what are you listening to?
What am I listening to? I'm always listening to a lot of jazz. I'm always listening to a lot of jazz for a few reasons. For my work, I do a lot of swing dancing, and that lives in that 20s, 30s, 40s era, as well as I like to make a lot of that music, the Tin Pan Alley and swing music.
That's fun. Yeah.
Either on ukulele or guitar.
Do you play instruments too?
I do. Not professionally. I've only played them for shows a few times.
Okay.
But I love making music in my off time, just as a hobby. And I only get to do it when I'm at home usually, because I travel a lot and usually I don't have space to bring a guitar and whatnot. Yeah. But it gives me a lot of joy. Both ukulele, guitar, and piano are my main instruments to play around with.
Yeah. And what are you excited for?
I am most excited right now. If you could look at my YouTube history, you would immediately know that I am most excited for a canoe camping trip that I'm planning this summer.
Oh, cool.
And I cannot wait. I really love backpacking and all outdoorsy things, but it's been almost a decade since I've done a longer canoe camping trip. And I'm planning one for at some point this summer, and just completely nerding out on gear and trip planning and everything about it. I'm going to go canoeing later today, just to go out on the river and start to test out some new gear that I bought for it.
Yeah. Okay. So for the listeners who will go and look you up online, you have a blurred face in all of your pictures, but I will just let you know you're even better looking in real life. You're so good looking. Oh, and my producer says that everybody needs to know that you have the best eyebrows, which you do. And so I'll give you a plug. You're very cute. And I'm sitting here listening to you talk and I'm like, oh, we made out once. You're so crushing on you a little bit. So it's fun. But everyone should book you. Where can people find you?
Oh my gosh, you're too sweet. I'm so glad no one can just see me blushing on the other side of the Zoom call. People can find me at my website, emeryfields.com. I also have a Twitter that you can find me at, Emery Fields. There's an underscore in there somewhere, but you'll find it. I'm
sure people can find it. I'll put it in the show notes. Yeah.
There we go. Those are the two main spaces that you can find me. Feel free to sign up for my newsletter, or just give me a follow, send a love note, say hey.
Great. Thank you so much.
I also have a little WhatsApp on there that you can always message me at as well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for having me. It was my pleasure.
It's very fun. Thank you for joining us for another episode of When We're Not Hustling. I'm your host, Jessie Sage. You can find me on Twitter at sapiotextual or visit my website at jessiesage.com. The show was produced by Emily Foster and the music is by Benjamin J. Beninati. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at NotHustlingPod. To support the show and get sneak peeks, please go to patreon.com/sapiotextual. For more information about our show and what we do here, please visit our website at nothustling.com. Signing off. Have a great week.